Chapter 141, Difficult to Move Forward. The 5 million yuan offer was far higher than what the county museum had proposed, but Lin Yang, the owner of the antique shop, had estimated the piece could fetch around 20 million at auction. 5 million was still well below his expectations and far from his bottom line. He refused without hesitation. Researcher Xiao, I appreciate the City Museum's interest, but this price doesn't come close to what I had in mind, he said. Xiao Qing looked uneasy. The City Museum rarely traded in antiques, but when it did, the deals were always profitable. Otherwise, he wouldn't have invested so much energy in this particular book. He tried to persuade Lin Yang, leaning forward and speaking earnestly. Mr. Lin, please don't turn us down so quickly. Our museum is sincere. Besides the 5 million acquisition fee, if you sell the Libu Yunlui to us, we can help get your parents jobs at the museum. The work environment is comfortable, the benefits are good, and they'll have pension and medical insurance after retirement. You won't have to worry about them anymore. Think about it. This would give your parents a secure future, and you could focus on what you really want to do. Xiao Qing's eyes were hopeful, convinced these generous promises would change Lin Yang's mind. But Lin Yang wasn't the same person he had been. What once sounded tempting no longer moved him. He smiled lightly and answered politely but firmly. Researcher Xiao, I appreciate your good intentions, but I can provide well for my parents myself. Those conditions don't appeal to me. I value the Libu Yunlu itself and want to find a buyer who truly understands its worth. His words were resolute. Xiao Qing, realizing he couldn't persuade Lin Yang, felt helpless and disappointed. He rose reluctantly and left, then immediately called the curator. Frustration laced his voice when the call connected. Curator, he won't sell the Libu Yunlui to our museum. I offered everything, even positions for his parents, but he won't budge. On the other end of the line, the curator blew up in anger. He really doesn't know what's good for him. I authorized 10 million, gave him half, 5 million, and he's still not satisfied. How much does he think that damaged book is worth? He's being absurdly greedy. The curator's voice crackled with fury. Xiao Qing could only listen as the curator ranted his dissatisfaction, clearly furious at Lin Yang's refusal. After seeing Xiao Qing off, Lin Yang's family and Tang Long went back inside to finish their meal. Tang Long, still excited by the day's events, grinned and gave a thumbs up. You hit the jackpot today, Lin Yang. You found an ancient book and a natural bezoar. These are things most people wouldn't even dare to dream about. Lin Yang waved a hand and smiled. It was luck, but today was definitely surprising. They chatted and laughed, their worries pushed aside for the moment. After dinner, Lin Yang's father walked Tang Long to the door. Back in his room, Lin Yang went straight to the safe. Iris recognition verified his identity, and it opened. He carefully placed the Libu Yunlu inside, then the 10-pound natural bezoar. He added the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure hint map and the tourmaline golden crab, items that might be the key to finding more treasure. All these valuables were locked away. Yet a prick of unease gnawed at him. These things were priceless. If malicious people learned of them, they would invite nothing but trouble. A home safe felt inadequate. He needed a villa with a full security system. Only then could these items truly be protected and his family live more peacefully. But his plan to build a villa hit a major roadblock. He had eagerly submitted the application and expected it to go through, yet the county had stalled and the approval hadn't come. He knew exactly why. He had made an enemy of Li Wenlong, son of the county's powerful leader, Li Gang. Lin Yang had exposed Li Wenlong's misbehavior during a live stream and reported him for drug use, which led to Li Wenlong's detention and even to Li Gang publicly disowning his son. Naturally, Li Gang bore a grudge. If the matter wasn't resolved, life in his hometown would become unbearable. His family would be stymied at every turn. To clear the path, he knew he had to bring Li Gang down. Fortunately, the intelligence system had given him a weapon. A tip that Li Gang kept 40 million yuan in cash hidden in the bathroom ceiling of his house. That 29 was a dagger in Lin Yang's hand. 40 million in cash would be ironclad evidence of serious illegal activity. Li Gang, abusing his power, must have been conducting illicit transactions for a long time and stashing the proceeds. Lin Yang took a steadying breath and arranged for a real-name tip to be submitted through an intermediary, cost him 1,000 yuan via the seafood market to get someone to act on his behalf. After filing the report, he kept the pressure on, streaming videos highlighting Li Wenlong shouting, "My dad is Li Gang." All Lin Yang needed now was time and public pressure. He believed that between the formal complaint and the uproar online, a response would follow soon. The next day, in Fenghuang County at Li Gang's office, an assistant reported in. "Leader, the approval for Lin Yang's family to rebuild their old house has been blocked. It won't be approved unless you say so." Li Gang nodded slowly. "Good. He made my son look bad. I'll make sure he can't move an inch in Fenghuang County from now on." This week, the intelligence system fed him 4 items of information. Using 3 reset functions, he'd also pulled 1 super high-value tip, an improved lithium ore extraction process developed by Professor Gong. Lithium ore, called the white oil of the new energy industry, was crucial. Professor Gong had been working in the field for years to raise extraction efficiency and purity. If his new method were put into use, it would sharply cut extraction costs and boost resource utilization. It could be a transformative breakthrough for the whole lithium sector. Lin Yang knew this was rare and potentially lucrative, so the moment he received the intelligence, he asked Hu Qian to help him contact Professor Gong. He wanted to be on that express train of technology. The other 4, more ordinary, pieces of intelligence also had promise. 3 were already being handled. The last one pointed to a seemingly unremarkable plot of land downstream from the Tuojiang River. Don't be fooled. According to the report, it was practically a pepper grower's paradise. The peppers from that plot were said to be exceptional, better tasting even than the famed Jiangsu port peppers, which sold for as much as 500 yuan per jin and were still in short supply. Lin Yang did the math. The land's annual gross value, conservatively estimated at 20 million yuan, with at least 10 million in profit. It was an attractive proposition. His plan was straightforward. Lease that village land, set up an agricultural company to grow and market peppers, and put his parents in charge of running it. Even though the family was no longer poor, his parents had never stopped working hard, and they missed having meaningful work. This would give them a comfortable, dignified role while generating substantial income. It checked all the boxes. After breakfast, Lin Yang went to the village office. Village head Huang Shu was at his desk, dealing with routine matters. When he saw Lin Yang enter, a warm smile crossed his face, and he stood to meet him. "Xiaoyang, you came about the old house reconstruction, right? That's stuck at the county level. I can't do anything about it," Huang Shu said. Lin Yang smiled. "No, old Huang, I'm here for something else." He wasted no time. "I want to lease the plot under Black Elk Peak." Huang Shu's expression changed to bewilderment. "What, that place? Are you sure?" He studied Lin Yang as if seeing him for the first time. "Do you know that land situation? It's remote, poor soil, bad irrigation, nothing grows well there. It's practically useless. Whoever rents it gets unlucky." Lin Yang had expected resistance. He stayed calm. "I know its problems. I have my own plans." Huang Shu persisted, more out of habit than hope. "Don't be foolish, Xiaoyang. That place is a hot potato. You're doing well now. Don't throw money into a bottomless pit." Lin Yang shook his head, tone resolute. "I've made up my mind. Please don't try to dissuade me. I believe this land is valuable." Seeing that words wouldn't change him, Huang Shu reluctantly called Lin Weiguo, Lin Yang's father. He explained the situation in detail. "Weiguo, your son insists on renting the barren land under Black Elk Peak. I can't talk him out of it. What do you think he's up to?" After a short silence, Lin Weiguo's voice came through. "Old Huang, don't worry. If Xiaoyang wants it, let him. He knows what he's doing. We elders shouldn't interfere too much." Huang Shu sighed and hung up. "All right then. If you want it, don't blame me if it goes wrong." He went on to explain the lease specifics. "It's 18 mu and has been lying fallow. I'll make the price lower for you. Used to be 400 yuan a mu, but I'll charge 200 a mu now. That's 3,600 yuan a year." Lin Yang was pleasantly surprised at the concession. He'd expected the rent to be modest, but not that low. "Thank you, old Huang. I want to lease it for 50 years, 180,000 yuan in total. When can the contract be ready?" Huang Shu nodded. I'll have someone draw it up right away. Within minutes, the lease contract was delivered. Lin Yang checked it, 50 years, total rent 180,000 yuan, no problematic clauses. He signed without hesitation. With the land secured, Lin Yang rushed to the county administration for industry and commerce to register his agricultural company. He filled out the forms, submitted the documents he'd prepared, and expected a routine approval. Instead, the application was rejected. He stared at the notice in disbelief. The listed reasons were baffling. The company name was said to be too similar to an existing registered company, yet he had double-checked that before applying. The registered address was flagged as non-compliant, though it was a genuine leased parcel with proper paperwork. Something did not add up. A thought came to him immediately: Li Gang. Their conflict over Li Wenlong had made him an enemy of a powerful man. It now looked as if Li Gang was quietly making trouble, blocking his company registration and trying to derail his plans. Chapter 143. Let's talk about it. When your dad can get out. As Lin Yang was leaving the government building, he caught fragments of conversation among the staff. He hadn't expected the report to move so quickly. Barely had it been filed when Li Gang was already being taken away for investigation. Hey, did you hear? The big boss has been taken in. You're fast. I just saw it in the group. Apparently, it's about the mistress's house. At that level, others have mistresses too. Why investigate over that? You wouldn't believe it. They found 40 million in cash hidden in the bathroom ceiling at that house. At the mention of 40 million, the room went quiet, as if the air had been sucked out. Then everyone reacted at once. Teacups paused halfway to lips, mouths fell open, eyes widened in disbelief. Some hands trembled. 40 million! How many bundles of bills is that? It could fill a room, a young clerk blurted out. An older man who'd been there on business paled, clutched his chest, and muttered, I've never seen that much money. How could he hide so much? No wonder Li Wenlong spends like that, someone else whispered. Turns out there was a fortune backing him. Lin Yang stood nearby, watching the ripple of shock. A thin smile tugged at his mouth. He'd kept his report secret, never expecting it would produce results so quickly. The speed of the investigation exceeded his expectations. Remembering how Li Gang had used his power to make trouble for him, the obstruction over the old house reconstruction and the company registration, Lin Yang felt a long-suppressed anger lift. The man was finally getting his comeuppance. He knew his complaint had done more than that. It had likely been the first push against a precarious pile of dominoes. Plenty of people coveted Li Gang's position. Once an opening appeared, rivals would swarm in. 40 million in cash was enough to keep a man behind bars for years. With Li Gang gone, Li Wenlong's swagger would probably shrivel. The thought put a keen sense of satisfaction in Lin Yang's chest. He looked forward to the new leadership. Without Li Gang's interference, the house reconstruction and the agricultural company's registration would be far easier to handle. Without lingering, he headed to the parking lot, slid into his car, and drove out. The road he took was usually free-flowing, but today it crawled. Cars moved like they were stuck in mud, horns blared, exhaust hung heavy. Lin Yang frowned. He inched forward, scanning for the cause of the jam. Ahead, a tangle of vehicles and a press of onlookers marked an accident. As he drew closer, a flash of black caught his eye. Li Wenlong's BMW, the odd license plate unmistakable. Lin Yang felt a flicker of surprise. He hadn't expected to run into him here. Li Wenlong stood by his car, red-faced and furious, berating a thin, middle-aged man who looked helpless. The man's keys were clenched in white fingers. His jaw worked as if he wanted to argue but couldn't. "You cut across the lane and hit my car," the middle-aged man said, voice shaking. "You were turning left from a lane going straight." Li Wenlong sneered, stepped forward, and jabbed a finger at him. "Do you know who I am? My father is Li Gang. You should be getting out of my way. If you don't pay up now, don't even think about leaving." At the name Li Gang, the man went pale. He retreated a step, folded his arms around his chest like protection, and mumbled, I really didn't mean to, but..." His hand shook as he fished his phone from his pocket. He opened WeChat and stared at the small balance, every digit a reminder of how little he had. It had been earned by hard work, but under Li Wenlong's threat, he had no choice. Offending Li Gang could make his life unbearable. "I've got only this," he said, tears pricking his eyes. "Take it all." Lin Yang watched, the scene filling him with disgust and a flash of sympathy. He'd been in the other man's shoes once. Not everyone could stand up to power. Before he could do anything else, he stepped forward. "Enough. Don't go that far." His voice cut clean through the noise. He forced his way through the crowd and planted himself between Li Wenlong and the trembling man, glaring down at Li Wenlong. Li Wenlong froze, then recognized him. His face drained of color, then hardened with rage. "You," he spat. "I didn't come looking for you, and you still show up. You're the reason I got detained for a few days. If I don't break one of your legs today, I won't be Li." He rolled up his sleeves and lunged as if to strike. His foot shot out in a vicious kick aimed at Lin Yang. Lin Yang moved with calm speed. He sidestepped the kick and, using his waist to drive the motion, fired his own leg out like a coiled spring. His boot slammed into Li Wenlong's chest with clean force. The younger man flew backward like a kite with a snapped string, landing hard and sending up a cloud of dust. For a stunned moment, Li Wenlong lay on the ground, eyes wide and mouth open. Then fury coursed back through him. He pointed a trembling finger at Lin Yang. "You kicked me. My father will have you arrested." Lin Yang took 2 steps forward and looked down at him, disdain clear on his face. "Your father will have me arrested?" he said. "We'll talk about that when your dad can get himself out." Chapter 144. Why did he rent the wasteland? Lin Yang's voice wasn't loud, but in the noisy square it cut through everything, clear and deliberate, each word landing like a hammer on Li Wenlong's chest. A bad premonition rose in Li Wenlong as he took in Lin Yang's confident expression and thought of how he hadn't been able to reach his father, Li Gang, all day. Panic nudged at him, but he swallowed it and put on a show of bravado. "Don't talk rubbish. What could have happened to my father? Just wait until he gets here. You'll regret this," he shouted, forcing force into his tone. The tremor in his voice betrayed him. The crowd noticed. Lin Yang looked at Li Wenlong, loud on the outside, trembling on the inside, with obvious contempt. He straightened and scanned the gathering. Curious faces leaned in, drawn by the sudden confrontation. Lin Yang cleared his throat and spoke up so everyone could hear. "You still don't know?" he said. "Your father has been taken in for investigation. He was escorted away today. Corruption charges." A ripple of stunned murmurs swept the crowd. Eyes widened. Many couldn't believe that the once untouchable Li Gang might be implicated. "Is that true? Li Gang investigated? He always acted so high and mighty. I heard his son runs wild, thinking his father's power covers him. Good, let him learn humility. About time they checked him. Corrupt officials shouldn't be above the law." As voices swelled, Li Wenlong felt as if lightning had struck him. He went pale, his knees weakening. For a long moment he stood speechless, lips trembling. "You're lying," he managed finally. "My dad isn't being investigated. You're making this up." Lin Yang's sneer was calm. "There isn't a news report yet, but it will come. Your father's been reported. Someone found 40 million in cash hidden in the ceiling of his mistress's bathroom. You didn't know that, did you?" The words sent the world tilting for Li Wenlong. He had been the one to suggest hiding the money there. If someone could name that hiding place, then it had to be true. His phone slipped from his numbed fingers and thudded to the ground. Someone in the crowd stepped forward, voice low but sure. "It's true. I have a relative in government. Li Gang was taken away today." That confirmation ignited the crowd. The outrage they'd been nursing toward the Li family boiled over. Fingers pointed at Li Wenlong. "Look at him, always acting on his father's clout. Now the backer's gone. See how arrogant you are then. He should have been investigated years ago. People like him need to be punished." Before Li Wenlong could collect himself, someone, no one later remembered who, kicked him. Fists followed. He crumpled to the ground and made no attempt to fight back. His eyes had lost their focus. He kept whispering, "No, this can't be real," as if clinging to denial might steady him. Lin Yang watched without flinching. He felt a cold satisfaction. People who built their lives on abuse and impunity deserved this reckoning. He stepped over and put a hand on the shoulder of a middle-aged man nearby, one of the people Li Wenlong had wronged, and spoke quietly, "Don't be afraid. Your main protector is gone. You don't need to pay him compensation anymore. This is his responsibility. Let him bear it. The man could only nod, eyes wet, gratitude shaking him. He fumbled for his phone and called the police. Satisfied, Lin Yang turned and walked away. News of Lin Yang renting the wasteland beneath Black Elk Peak spread through the village like dry brush catching flame. By evening, the whole place was abuzz. Aunt Wang, under the old locust tree at the village entrance, was delivering the gossip with relish. Did you hear? Lin Yang rented that wasteland behind the village, 3,600 yuan a year. Old man Zhang nearly dropped his pipe. That land? Barren as bone. Who'd pay for that? A fool's money. He shook his head, suspicious of anyone who'd spend on such ground, and added, he even signed for 50 years. What on earth is he thinking? Second brother Li snorted. He must know something we don't. Remember the broken table he bought? Turned out to hide ancient books. That sick cow with a bizoar. Maybe there's a secret there, too. Uncle Zhao, the village repository of half-true knowledge, stroked his chin. Lin Yang has a nose for things. He wouldn't do this without a reason. Maybe there's treasure buried there. Maybe he sees something we don't. Aunt Wang nodded eagerly, and a few others murmured agreement. Still, old man Zhang couldn't let go of his scorn. The village split into two camps, those who thought Lin Yang was squandering money on a worthless patch of land, and those who suspected he had some scheme or discovery up his sleeve. The debate simmered and flared like a quiet, persistent argument. Look, here comes Lin Yang's car. Quick, ask him why he rented that wasteland. Lin Yang pulled into the lane to find several neighbors waving at him. He climbed out, smiled placidly, and asked, "What's up, everyone? Can I help you with something?" Chapter 145, Auctions. Xiaoyang, I heard you rented the village wasteland. Is there treasure buried there? Yeah, Xiaoyang. If there's treasure, tell us a little so we can get a cut. Lin Yang smiled. There's no treasure. I just saw the land was big enough, perfect for planting. Really? The neighbors sounded unconvinced. They all knew that patch of land. No one had wanted it before. They couldn't figure out why Lin Yang had taken it. The news had spread through the village faster than he expected, but with his contract signed and all the suitable chili planting plots contracted, he didn't worry about anyone snatching it back. He still wouldn't reveal the real reason to anyone. When the villagers left, Lin Yang drove home. He had barely parked the car when an electric bike pulled up behind him. Village head Huang Genru stopped, set his foot down, and took a paper from his pocket, waving it at Lin Yang. Lin Yang, your application to rebuild the old house has been approved. That fast? Lin Yang asked, pleasantly surprised. It was stuck in the county for days. You're lucky, the newly appointed leader got it processed in just a few days. Huang Genru handed the document to him, emotion on his face. Thanks for coming to deliver it, Lin Yang said gratefully, touched by the village head's effort. He opened the trunk, took out a pack of Haitianxia cigarettes, and handed them to Huang Genru. The village head tucked the cigarettes into the electric bike's storage and smiled. It's my duty. The document's been delivered. I've still got business in the village, so I'll go. Have a safe trip, Huangshu. Lin Yang watched him ride away, thoughts racing. He was surprised Li Gang had been arrested and the application approved so quickly. It seemed Li Gang's case was closed, no chance he'd come back to interfere, so no one was listening to his threats anymore. Now that the rebuilding permit was secured, construction on the villa could begin. The design had already been finalized, and Lin Yang found himself imagining the completed house, a grin slowly spreading across his face. He went into the house with the document, eager to tell his parents the good news. Dad, Mom, the rebuilding application was approved. His parents went from stunned to radiant smiles. Really? That's wonderful. His father jumped up, grabbing Lin Yang's hands, eyes bright with excitement. His mother had tears in her eyes, covering her mouth as she tried to speak. Xiaoyang, tell us, what will the new villa look like? Lin Yang carefully unfolded the design drawings he had brought from the car and spread them on the table. Look, this is the villa design. He pointed and explained every detail. It's 3 stories in a Chinese style, grand and elegant. The exterior walls will be high-grade stone with fine carvings, very luxurious. The roof will have red glazed tiles. It'll look beautiful in the sunlight. His parents leaned in, following the drawings. It looks like a palace. his father exclaimed in awe. "I never thought we could live in something like this." "The interior is well planned," Lin Yang continued. "On the first floor, there's a living room, dining room, kitchen, and a guest room. The living room has a 6-meter-high ceiling and a wall of floor-to-ceiling windows for great light and views. The dining room seats 10, so family gatherings won't feel crowded. The kitchen is open plan with a full set of high-end appliances, much easier for mom to cook. The second floor has 3 bedrooms, each with an ensuite bathroom and a balcony. The master suite is the largest and includes a walk-in closet, so mom will have plenty of space for her clothes. The third floor is for leisure, a gym, a home theater, and a large open-air terrace. We can exercise, watch movies, and sunbathe or drink tea on the terrace." As he spoke, his parents' surprise turned into delight and then pure happiness. They made small exclamations, eager about every detail. Lin Yang didn't dwell on the security system. Those were high-tech things his parents wouldn't understand yet. He'd teach them how to use everything after the villa was built. "Once construction starts," he added, "the old house will be demolished. I thought, you two could stay in Xing City for a while." His father hesitated. "Building a house is a big job. We still need someone to watch over things at home." "I can hire professional supervisors to oversee quality and progress," Lin Yang said quickly. "You just relax and enjoy yourselves." His mother looked moved and turned to his father. "Let's listen to Xiao Yang. We can go to Xing City, see how he's doing, and get some fresh air." After a moment, his father smiled and nodded. "All right, we'll go." Lin Yang was thrilled. He suddenly remembered the family island tour voucher he'd won from buying drinks. He hadn't redeemed it yet. It would be perfect for taking his parents away. "I also have more good news. I won a family tour quota, an island trip, when I bought drinks. If we don't use it, it'll expire, so I'll redeem it and take you both." "Really? We won't have to spend our own money?" His mother's eyes lit up. "We've never traveled before. This time, we must have a good time." His father laughed, happiness on his face. Just then, Lin Yang's phone rang. The screen showed Lin Bayan, the antique shop owner. He answered, and Lin Bayan's cheerful voice came through immediately. "Lin Yang, it's Lin Bayan. There's a major auction next Saturday evening in Xing City. Top bigwigs from every industry will be there. I got you a slot. I'll send the electronic invitation soon. Bring that copy of Le Bu Yunlue. It'll fetch a high price, but I get a 15% commission. Is that acceptable?" The City Museum's highest bid for Le Bu Yunlue had been 5 million so far. Lin Bayan thought it could bring in at least 20 million at this auction. After the 15% commission, about 17 million would remain. Any sane person would know the right choice. "Boss Lin, thank you so much. I'll be there on time," Lin Yang said excitedly, his voice full of uncontained anticipation. Chapter 146, Monthly Intelligence System. No sooner had Lin Yang hung up the phone than his cell chimed a crisp ding-dong. The electronic invitation had arrived. He opened it eagerly. The text and images seemed to glow with a strange allure. The invitation felt like a key to a secret world, a rare opportunity. The auction was set for 8 p.m. next Saturday, not in a grand hotel ballroom or one of Xing City's upscale residential compounds, but in a mysterious villa perched atop Mount Lu. Mount Lu, the city's most famous tourist spot, drew visitors from all over the country every day. Winding paths up the mountain were filled with laughter and camera clicks. People paused at Iwan Pavilion to recite Dumu's verses, enchanted by autumn leaves painting the slopes. Others lingered around the academy at the foot of the mountain, soaking in the 1,000-year cultural atmosphere and the echoes of history. But when passers-by reached the villa at the summit, walled high and tightly guarded, their steps unconsciously slowed, and curiosity sharpened. The villa was like a recluse's domain, hidden among the peaks, yet radiating an irresistible aura of secrecy. Whenever its massive gates opened, even for a moment, luxury cars with special plates would pour out, their engines growling like a proclamation of their owner's stature. Just that brief glimpse was enough to convince onlookers that whoever lived there must be extraordinarily wealthy and powerful, holding sway over resources ordinary people could only imagine. Until now, Lin Yang had been like everyone else. He could only stare at the villa from below and imagine what lay inside. The invitation changed that. He would be allowed through those gates to an auction attended by top figures from various fields. An inside look at a world that had always felt out of reach. The thought filled him with excitement and a quietly swelling pride. With less than 10 days until the event, Lin Yang spent the following days wrapping up affairs in his hometown before returning to Xing City. He threw himself into the work energetically. At the county government hall, he registered an agricultural company. Without Li Gang's interference, the process went smoothly. Then a bombshell hit the headlines nationwide. Reporters discovered 40 million in cash stashed in Li Gang's mistress's villa. Images of the stacks of money flashed across major media outlets, a mirror reflecting the greed and corruption of Li Gang and his circle. Soon after, videos of Li Wenlong's arrogant, bullying behavior surfaced and went viral. Netizens erupted, condemning the father and son duo for abusing power and acting with impunity. The online outrage swelled by the hour. Lin Yang felt a rush of satisfaction and vindication. Those who had used power and wealth to trample ordinary people were finally being exposed and punished. It felt like justice. After finishing their local arrangements, Lin Yang and his parents packed with anticipation. Their old house would be demolished and rebuilt, a careful renovation that would take about half a year. During that time, the family would start a new life in Xing City. Time flew. On Sunday morning, Lin Yang woke to the system's familiar notification sounding in his head. Ding! This week's intelligence has been pushed. Host, please check. He opened the panel to receive the weekly intelligence. His luck that week was middling. Only 3 pieces of intelligence were initially listed, so he used the reset function without hesitation. Ding! This week's intelligence reset successful. After the reset, the panel showed 4 pieces of intelligence, an increase of 1. Lin Yang frowned. His system experience stood at 2,500 out of the 3,000 needed to upgrade from weekly to monthly intelligence. Monthly intelligence would extend the time window for each tip to cover events occurring within the next month instead of the next week, and it would dramatically increase the value of each piece. Daily intelligence usually pointed to events within a day and yielded relatively small gains. Weekly intelligence filtered out useless noise and raised the value per piece into the millions. Monthly intelligence, once unlocked, would likely make each tip worth at least tens of millions. Unfortunately, even after the reset, there were only 4 pieces. Each piece of intelligence granted 100 experience points, so after reading all 4, he would gain 400 points, enough to reach 2,900, but still 100 short of the 3,000 needed. There was no way around it. The upgrade would have to wait until next week. Accepting that, Lin Yang began to read the 4 pieces the system had automatically pushed for the week. Chapter 147, Military Industry. Weekly Intel 1. During a conflict with Asan, Baba Sheep successfully shot down 7 Asan fighter jets using a J-10CE armed with a PL-15 missile. Military stocks surged at Monday's open. Over the coming week, Baba Sheep will continue to provide positive reports, and military stocks will continue to rise. Investing spare funds in the military sector will yield steady profits. It had been weeks since he'd seen any stock-related intel. He hadn't expected more stock tips after the Baba Sheep Asan skirmish, and the vague wording, sector-wide rather than naming a specific company, diminished its immediate value. If this were truly high-tier intel, it would point to a particular stock, not just a broad sector. Still, if he passed the message to Hu Qian, she could use her experience to pick the right shares. Foodie Battery's stock had been climbing steadily. As the largest shareholder, Lin Yang's paper wealth had soared. That money, though, was untouchable. He also had around 200 million yuan reserved for building a villa back home. Liquid cash was tight. Despite assets that, on paper, added up to over $1 billion, the amount he could actually spend was minimal. It was a reminder. He wasn't rich enough yet. He had to earn more to reach real financial freedom. He wondered how to turn the intel into usable capital. His phone chimed. A relocation compensation payment for 10 houses he'd bought in Xing City had arrived. 48,329.4 yuan, plus a 100,000 yuan early signing bonus, making the total 48,121,429.4 yuan. With nearly 50 million available, he could invest. If fortune smiled, 20% daily returns for a week, His sum could reach roughly 120 million after 5 trading days, more than 2.4 times the principal. Even if Hu Qian didn't pick the perfect defense sector stock, at least he wouldn't lose everything. For ordinary investors, the market was brutal. 9 out of 10 people lost money, but with the weekly intel system backing him, it felt like a safe bet. He opened his contacts and dialed Hu Qian. Since returning from Shaanxi after the Qingming festival, Hu Qian had thrown herself into work. Lately, she'd been busy helping Lin Yang lay the groundwork for an investment company, and she'd already handed in her resignation. After a month-long handover, she could leave her job and focus entirely on Lin Yang's projects. When her phone rang and she saw it was Mr. Lin, she answered immediately. "Mr. Lin, how can I help you?" On the other end, Lin Yang sensed a subtle difference in her tone. He couldn't say what, but he pushed it aside. "I've got more money in the account. For the coming week, put it all into the military sector." "Understood, Mr. Lin." She had noticed the skirmish between Baba Sheep and Hassan. Once such a conflict escalated, defense stocks would react, positively or negatively, depending on Baba Sheep's performance. She hadn't expected Lin Yang to focus on that sector, and she wondered how he could be so sure the outcome would be good enough to justify putting everything into it. In the past, she might have advised caution, suggested waiting for clearer signs. But after working closely with him, she knew Lin Yang never acted without confidence. If he wanted everything in the military sector, that meant he knew Baba Sheep would perform exceptionally well. What she didn't know was the source of his information. Her own team of dozens hadn't received anything yet. After hanging up, Lin Yang scrolled through the rest of the intel. Weekly Intel 2, next Saturday. An ancient book will appear at the auction held on Mount Lu in Xing City. The book contains a hidden compartment within its pages, holding the password needed to decipher the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure hint map. Winning the book at auction will allow you to decode the treasure's secrets. He'd once dug up an ancient book with a page of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure hint map from his grandmother's old house. The Taiping treasure, the loot the Taiping army had plundered from more than half of Great Xia, was said to be unimaginably vast. Given his current strength, he couldn't reveal the full scope of the treasure. He'd shown only a sliver of one page to Lin Bian to avoid leaks. He was curious about the treasure's location, but didn't have the knowledge to interpret the map. If this auction book really contained the password to decipher it, he had to try. He hoped the auction wouldn't draw a crowd. If few people bid, he could pick it up at a modest price. Fortunately, the auction was Saturday. He planned to have Hu Qian transfer the funds after the market closed Friday. The money should be enough. Even a precious work like Libu Yunlue would likely be estimated at around 20 million yuan. Very few books outvalued that. Weekly Intel 3. On Wednesday at 14:08, a sudden strong gust will strike the center of the Tuojiang River, capsizing 2 tourist boats and throwing dozens of people into the water. Preventing the boats from departing will avert the accident. Why was he getting this? Did someone he knew plan to be on those boats? The thought made his brow crease. He couldn't simply run to the dock and scream that the boats mustn't leave. People would think him insane and ignore him. He'd have to find a subtler way to keep those boats from departing at that exact time. Weekly Intel 4. An old red photo album has appeared in the old goods market on Chifu Road in Fenghuang County. One of the photos in it is the only surviving picture of Liang Dingen's mother, the richest man in Shangnan province. Buying the album and gifting that photo to Liang Dingen will win his favor. Liang Dingen, the richest man in Shangnan with a net worth of 100 billion yuan. The province's richest man was worth more than 10 times the richest person in Xing City. Previously, using Intel, Lin Yang had helped Xing City's richest man acquire a 40 million yuan house. If he could curry favor with Liang Dingen, what doors would that open? The possibilities made his mind race. Chapter 148. The Richest Man in Shonan. Xiaoyang. Time to eat. His mother's familiar call cut through the silence and pulled Lin Yang out of his immersion in the flow of information. He had just finished reading the 4 crucial intelligence reports for the week. He answered instinctively, closed his tablet, rose slowly, and went downstairs for breakfast. While she placed dishes on the table, his mother mentioned casually, "Your little uncle just called. He's really grateful that you bought a house for him and Grandma and got them retirement insurance. He wants to take the whole family out on the Tuojiang River on Wednesday afternoon. Says he wants a proper get-together and to liven things up." At once, Lin Yang's relaxed expression froze and the chopsticks in his hand hovered in midair. A piece of information he'd just read flashed back into his mind. A strong, sudden wind would strike the Tuojiang on Wednesday afternoon, capsizing pleasure boats and throwing dozens of people into the water with casualties. What were the odds? His brows knit into a tight furrow. No wonder he'd received that intelligence. His little uncle was planning to be on the river at exactly that time. That would never do. He had to stop the boats from leaving. Directly blocking the outing was impossible. It would sound insane. No one would believe him. His mind raced through possibilities until a bold idea sparked. If he couldn't stop them, he could simply charter every boat. He did a quick mental calculation. 30 yuan per person, 20 people per boat, 5 boats. Chartering all 5 would cost 3,000 yuan, an amount well within his reach. If it prevented a disaster, it was worth every penny. He shoveled down a few bites of breakfast, then went back to his room, grabbed his phone, and called the boat company. He kept his voice steady and composed as he booked all 5 boats from 2 to 2:30 in the afternoon. The clerk on the other end, pleased at the large order, agreed immediately and added his WeChat. Lin Yang didn't hesitate. He transferred 3,000 yuan on the spot. When he hit confirm, a heavy weight seemed to lift from his chest, and he finally allowed himself a small sigh of relief. With that settled, he tidied up, drove to Chifu Road in the county town, and began searching for the photo album that held a picture of Liang Dingen's mother. As soon as he stepped onto Chifu Road, he was hit by the market's thick, unique smells. Stalls packed both sides of the street. Vendors hawked goods with hoarse voices. The cries blended into a lively market symphony. "Come see, genuine antiques. Once they're gone, they're gone. Cheap. The more you buy, the more you save." The stalls were a jumble of old furniture that still carried a hint of dignity, faded clothes that remembered past fashions, and little trinkets, some exquisite, some crude, each with its own story. To Lin Yang, every item could be the clue he needed. He wove through the crowd with a focused intensity, eyes sweeping like a blade across tables and piles. He crouched to rummage through bundles on the ground, picked up objects, wiped away dust, searching for any hint of a red old photo album. In a corner, he found a stall full of odds and ends. The vendor, an old man with white hair, sat smoking a short pipe. Lin Yang greeted him and began to search. His hands moved quickly through old books, magazines, and albums, his heart beating faster as he scanned page after page. Then a red-covered album caught his eye. His pulse quickened. His fingers trembled slightly as he opened it. The people in the photos were unfamiliar. All he knew was that it was a red old photo album. He couldn't tell if it was the right one. If he couldn't be sure, he'd buy all the red albums in the market. He combed through stall after stall, ignoring the sweat on his brow and the dampness along his back. Time slipped by, and the market thinned, but he kept at it. After more than an hour, he found 5 red photo albums in total. He bought them all without hesitating, 20 yuan each, 100 yuan altogether. Clutching the albums as he left the market, a small smile of relief crossed his face. Then a new problem hit him. He didn't know Liang Dingen personally. He didn't know which photo in the albums was the one of the richest man's mother, and he had no way to contact Liang. A knot of doubt and worry tightened in his chest. Had all his effort been for nothing? A low, oppressive roar of engines interrupted his thoughts. Several black luxury cars slid to a stop nearby like a small convoy of beasts. Doors opened, and men in black suits, tall, alert, efficient, stepped out and formed a protective ring. From the center car, a spry older man emerged. Liang Dingen, the richest man in Xiangnan. He was advanced in years, but carried an unmistakable presence. His eyes were sharp and deep, as though he could see through facades. The wrinkles on his face were not merely signs of age, but of a steady wisdom. He wore a custom suit and a silk scarf at his throat. An expensive watch flashed on his wrist. Every detail announced status and authority. Liang's assistant hurried to his side, bowed, and reported in a measured tone. "Boss, our investigation shows the photo album with the old madam's picture should have ended up in this market." Liang nodded once, his gaze sweeping the bustling stalls, a trace of urgency and resolve in his eyes. "Buy every red album in this market. It's better to buy the wrong one than to miss the right one. That is my mother's only relic. Whatever it costs, we must find it." Chapter 149, Free Gift. Liang Dingen's assistant sprang into action, ordering the bodyguards to fan out among the stalls and buy up everything. They moved quickly and decisively. Whenever a stall had photo albums, the bodyguards bought them on the spot. The vendors watched in confusion, whispering among themselves. What's going on? Why are they buying all the photo albums? Who knows? But judging by how they're acting, there must be something important in them. Fenghuang County was small, and the second-hand market even smaller. In just over 10 minutes, the bodyguards had cleared out every old photo album in the place and stacked them neatly in front of Liang Dingen. He swept his gaze over the piles with eager intensity, heart pounding at the thought of finding his mother's only photograph. He sat down and, page by page, examined each album himself, leaving nothing to chance. His assistant and the bodyguards hovered respectfully nearby, not daring to breathe and disturb him. Half an hour passed. Liang had gone through all the albums. The hope on his face drained away and fatigue settled into his features. He looked up, disappointment heavy in his voice. "Are you sure this is everything from the market?" The assistant lowered his head and shook it. "The vendors said a young man bought a few old albums before you arrived. Find him, and get those albums back, no matter what." Liang's voice left no room for doubt. The assistant snapped to attention. "Yes, sir." Lin Yang was halfway home from the second-hand market, 5 old photo albums in the trunk, when his phone lit up with an unfamiliar number. He ignored it at first, assuming it was spam, but the call came back insistently. With a reluctant sigh, he answered. "Hello, is this Mr. Lin Yang?" A polite, slightly urgent voice spoke on the other end. "Who is this?" "This is Mr. Liang's assistant," the caller replied. "Did you buy several photo albums at the Chifu Road second-hand market this morning?" Hearing the names Mr. Liang and photo albums, Lin Yang's first thought was that this must be the assistant of Liang Dingen, the richest man in Xiangnan province. He marveled inwardly at how quickly the wealthy man's people had tracked him down in the crowd. Truth be told, Lin Yang had been wondering how he might reach Liang after buying the albums, so the call was convenient. "Yes, that's right," he said. "Is there a problem?" "I'll be direct," the assistant said. "There may be something very important to Mr. Liang in the albums you've bought. He would like you to part with them and is willing to meet any conditions you name." The assistant's tone was sincere, as if every demand would be accepted. Lin Yang understood the implications immediately. According to the intel he'd heard, one of those albums likely contained the richest man's mother's only photograph. Liang Dingen would probably pay anything to recover it. If Lin Yang asked for $1 billion, he believed Liang would agree without hesitation. $1 billion was an enormous sum to him now, but not for long. Lin Yang thought of Fudi Battery. Its stock could one day be worth hundreds of billions. Money, he realized, wasn't the only thing that mattered. During the recent delays in his old house reconstruction application and the snags with company registration, he'd learned that connections were as valuable as cash. Online pressure might take care of people like Li Gang, but higher-ranked players didn't respond the same way. As his own wealth grew, so did the status of the people he had to deal with, and without the right network, bureaucratic obstacles would keep cropping up. Liang Dingen's status as the province's richest man meant he had a deep, impenetrable web of connections. In the long run, a favor from him could be worth more than a pile of cash. Lin Yang decided to bank that currency. "Mr. Liang must really need those albums," Lin Yang said calmly. "If that's the case, I'll give them to him." There was a stunned silence on the line. The assistant had expected a high price. He had not expected the albums to be offered for free. He recovered quickly enough to ask, incredulous, "Are you sure, Mr. Lin?" "Yes," Lin Yang said. "If they're that important to him, take them." Back at the market, the assistant relayed the news in disbelief. Liang Dingen, watching his assistant's expression, frowned. "Is the other party refusing to sell?" No, it's the opposite, the assistant said, voice barely containing surprise. He said if the albums are important to you, he'll give them to you for free. Liang stared at the stacks of albums and then closed his eyes for a moment, visibly moved. No one outside knew he was in Fenghuang County searching for his mother's only memento. That meant the donor didn't know who he was. To give these albums away, after learning they meant so much to him, suggested an unusual generosity. I won't take advantage of people, Liang said quietly, a firmness in his voice. If someone gives this to me freely, I will remember the favor. Arrange a meeting place immediately. We'll go and meet him right away. In the future, if he ever needs anything, I will do my utmost to repay him. The assistant exhaled, astonished at the sudden turn of events. With a few second-hand photo albums, his boss might now owe a debt to someone. What an opportunity. He couldn't help smiling at the thought of Liang Dingan owing a favor to an ordinary young man. Chapter 150, The Richest Man's Favor. As agreed, Lin Yang arrived at Tianhua Hotel, the county's largest and most prestigious hotel. It was well known locally for hosting important guests. Its decor was luxurious and its atmosphere refined. The moment he stepped into the lobby, a tall man in a black suit approached him. Professional and composed, his eyes were sharp, Liang Dingan's assistant. He greeted Lin Yang politely and led him to a VIP private room. Inside, Liang Dingan was waiting. He looked to be in his 50s, his hair neat and his custom suit immaculate. Though his face appeared composed, his eyes betrayed a mixture of anxiety and hope. Lin Yang didn't waste time on small talk. He handed over the bag containing 5 old photo albums. Mr. Lang, these are the photo albums I bought at the second-hand market this morning. Please see if they contain what you're looking for. Liang Dingan took the bag with both hands, his movements eager. His eyes lit up and he thanked Lin Yang repeatedly. Thank you so much, young man. You've helped me tremendously. He sat on the sofa, carefully picked up a photo album, and began to turn the pages with intense concentration. His gaze never wavered. For him, the world had narrowed to the photos in his hands. Lin Yang and the assistant stood nearby, barely breathing, not wanting to break the moment. As Liang Dingan examined album after album, the room grew tense. Suddenly, Liang Dingan's hands stopped. His breathing quickened and his eyes fixed on a particular page. His fingers trembled slightly. I found it. I finally found it. This is the only photo of my mother. He cried out, voice choked with emotion. Tears welled up and spilled down his cheeks. The photograph showed a woman in a cheongsam, graceful and elegant, with a gentle face and eyes that mixed warmth with resilience. The picture was black and white, but her presence was unmistakable. Liang Dingan reached out and gently stroked the photo as if he could reach through paper and feel his mother's warmth. For a long time he remained like that, lost in memory. Eventually he calmed and looked up at Lin Yang, gratitude and admiration shining in his eyes. Young man, I, Liang Dingan, will remember this kindness. Tell me, what reward do you want? He turned to his assistant. Transfer 1 billion to Mr. Lin immediately. He deserves it. Lin Yang waved a hand and smiled genuinely. Mr. Liang, I didn't expect a reward when I decided to give you the albums. These are important to you, and I'm truly glad to have helped you recover such precious memories. I can't accept the money, but thank you for the offer. Liang Dingan was taken aback. He hadn't expected Lin Yang to refuse such an amount. To him, 1 billion would tempt most people. The young man's reaction both surprised and intrigued him. He smiled, curiosity in his eyes. Do you think 1 billion is too much, or do you worry we might be scammers? He'd seen plenty of people who would do anything for money. Lin Yang's refusal impressed him. At such an age, to be unmoved by wealth suggested character and promise. He sat up straighter, the smile on his face both gentle and authoritative. Young man, you have a warm heart and a broad outlook. I admire that. My name is Liang Dingan. I'm the richest man in Xiangnan province. He produced an exquisite business card and handed it to Lin Yang. The card was startling, pure gold, softly gleaming, its edges set with tiny, perfectly cut diamonds. Liang Dingan's name and contact information were hot-stamped in gold lettering, simple, powerful, unmistakably prestigious. The assistant looked on with envy. He knew the card's value. Only 3 of these had ever been made. One had been given to a high-ranking official in the capital, another to the provincial governor. He hadn't expected the last one to be handed to Lin Yang. Normally, the assistant distributed Liang's ordinary cards when Liang wanted to show respect. For Liang to personally give out the gold card was a mark of extraordinary favor. He watched Lin Yang's reaction, expecting surprise or excitement. Instead, Lin Yang simply nodded and smiled that same sincere, composed smile. He showed no awkwardness or deference, no sign that Lang's status fazed him. For someone in his 20s, the calm poise was rare. Lang Dingen's admiration only deepened. "I've seen a lot in my time and met all kinds of people," Lang said, his voice steady. "But someone your age, with such composure and perspective, I've rarely encountered it. Today you've given me more than a few albums. You've given me a precious friendship. In the future, if you need anything, call the number on this card. No matter how big or small, I, Liang Dingen, will help." Lin Yang inclined his head politely. "Mr. Lang, you flatter me. I'm glad I could help. If I ever need assistance, I hope you won't hesitate to guide me." He said his goodbyes and left with steady, confident steps. After he went, Liang Dingen remained in a state of praise. "Look at this young man," he told his assistant. "Such poise and insight at his age, his future is boundless. If he hadn't brought the albums today, I don't know how long it would have taken to find my mother's photo. We must never forget this favor. From now on, whatever Mr. Lin needs, you must tell me at once and do everything you can to help him." The assistant nodded eagerly, envy and admiration churning in his mind. He couldn't help thinking how different his life might be if he had been the one to find the albums and earn Liang's favor. Chapter 151. Can you do whatever you want if you have money? Over the next few days, Lin Yang and his parents threw themselves into preparing for the trip to Xing City. They moved carefully through the rooms of the old house, sorting and packing items, each object carrying some memory of the life they'd lived there. They wrapped things as if preserving warm fragments of the past. At the same time, Lin Yang kept in close contact with the team rebuilding the villa. At first, he planned to hire an outside supervisor. The project was a complete transformation of the old house and represented his family's future home. There was no room for mistakes. A conversation with Wang Teacher's husband, Xiao Jian, changed his mind. Xiao Jian said frankly that the villa reconstruction was currently the company's only core business, and that every employee would throw themselves into it with the highest standards and the strictest discipline. There would be no need for an extra supervisor. He also promised to report progress to Lin Yang at any time and to cooperate fully if adjustments were needed. After thinking it over, Lin Yang decided Xiao Jian's offer was sincere and professional, and it would let him focus on other matters with fewer worries, so he agreed. Once the villa arrangements were settled, Lin Yang felt that, provided the small crisis of the capsizing at the river on Wednesday could be averted, things at home could be set aside for a while, and he could safely take his parents to Xing City. He planned to leave on Thursday. After finishing his work in the city, he intended to redeem the Family Island vacation prize he had won so they could relax together, and by the time they returned, the villa would likely be close to completion and ready for them to move in. Time flew. Before he knew it, it was Wednesday. Early that morning, Lin Yang took his parents to Little Uncle's new home. Little Uncle and Grandma greeted them warmly. They all sat down to a cozy lunch. After a short rest, they headed for the Tuojiang River to board a cruise. Lin Yang knew from the information he'd gathered that a sudden strong gust of wind would hit the middle of Tuojiang River at 2:08 p.m., capsizing cruise ships and throwing passengers into the water, causing casualties. If no boats went into the middle of the river at that time, the disaster could be avoided. To keep everyone safe, he had chartered 5 cruise ships for that exact time slot. As soon as Lin Yang's family reached the dock, they stopped dead at the chaotic scene. People were jammed in front of the ticket office, shouting and arguing so loudly it felt like a pot boiling over. A middle-aged man, face flushed and veins standing out at his neck, clutched his ticket and glared at the seller. "I bought this a week ago," he shouted. "You can't just keep me from boarding like this. I want an explanation today." Beside him, an older woman planted her hands on her hips and yelled at the top of her lungs, "Either give me a 3-fold refund like the rules say, or let me on right now." I don't have time to mess around here." Her eyes burned with indignation. A young man nearby, red-faced, waved his arms and shouted, "So having money lets you do whatever you want? This is bullying." His voice cut through the noise and drew nods and murmurs of agreement from the crowd. Several people had already pulled out their phones and were taking pictures, muttering, "I'm going to expose this. Let everyone see how the rich act." A few live streamers had already tuned in, switching their cameras between the ticket counter and the crowd, breathless with excitement at the hot topic. Little Uncle stood to the side watching and couldn't help but sigh. "Ah, having money really makes a difference," he said. "Like they say, if you've got money, you can do whatever you want. We ordinary people can't compete." Grandma quickly tugged his sleeve and whispered, worried, "Keep your voice down. Anyone could hear you, and who knows what trouble that could bring." Little Uncle agreed with a perfunctory, "Okay, Mom," but his face still registered displeasure. Lin Yang watched them both and felt a bitter smile. He knew the arbitrary rich person they were talking about was actually him. If they knew the truth, he wondered how shocked they would be. As time passed, the crowd's anger swelled and the disturbance grew. People who hadn't planned to board the two-boat were drawn in by the tense atmosphere and joined the protest. Dozens of people crowded the ticket office and started chanting in unison, "Refund, refund, refund." Their voices rose like a single wave. Netizens tuned into the live streams and quickly turned into an online mob of outrage. Comments poured in condemning whoever had chartered the boats. "This is too much. Can money trample on other people's rights? Chartering boats whenever you want and treating us like dust. This needs to be condemned," one person fumed. "Refuse to accept this injustice," wrote another. "Does having money mean you can ignore rules and do whatever you want? Society can't be like this. Explain yourself." Others attacked the charterer's morality. "So selfish," one comment read, "thinking only of yourself and not a single thought for other tourists. Money can't fix the hurt he's caused people's hearts." And then the online complainers kicked into full gear. "So what if he has money? He's just showing off with his filthy cash. Today he can charter a boat and stop others from boarding. What's next? Will he buy the whole dock and ban everyone from coming near it?" That exaggerated take drew likes and shares from an already riled-up audience. To them, the charterer's move was arrogant enough that someone had to stand up and call him out. Chapter 152. I want to apologize for my previous remarks. Among the flood of comments, there were a few reasonable voices. Some netizens urged calm, don't join the mob blindly, don't judge from one-sided reports, and try to understand the whole situation before posting outrage. Chartering the boat did inconvenience other tourists, but you can't condemn someone on only one account. Maybe he had his reasons. Let's be rational. But in the fevered atmosphere of public indignation, those voices were quickly drowned out. As the live stream's popularity continued to climb, the debate over whether money could buy immunity spread across other platforms. On Weibo, related topics shot to the top of trending searches, drawing millions of views and comments. On Douyin, videos about the ruckus at the dock multiplied like mushrooms after rain, each one racking up likes and comments. Even niche forums filled with threads criticizing the man who'd chartered the boats. The online storm intensified until it felt as if the charterer would be swallowed by an ocean of public opinion. At 2:08, the instant that would mark the turning point, the weather abruptly changed. The sapphire blue sky seemed to be pulled down by an invisible hand, and a vast black curtain fell across the sun. Light vanished, and the world plunged into a crushing gloom. A gale swept in like a beast unleashed from hell, shrieking and savage. The river, which had been calm moments before, rose in fury. Waves roared and heaved, surging 2 or 3 meters high, smashing and colliding like thrown boulders. Water struck the dock, and the excursion boats in a staccato of splashes and cracking impacts. The boats tied to the pier were caught between wind and wave, tossed and rolled like fallen leaves. Their side-to-side sway increased until bows slammed up and down, hulls grinding and creaking. Tourists who had been angrily arguing about boarding times turned pale. Their shouts broke into terrified cries. Then heavy rain fell as if 10,000 arrows had been loosed. Drops hit the river and burst into a spray that turned the surface into a white mist. Water ran down hulls and pooled on decks, forming little fast-moving streams. The storm became a curtain of rain that swallowed sight and sound, enclosing the dock in a blinding wall. Under that violent onslaught, one excursion boat couldn't take it. The tilt of the vessel kept worsening until with a dull, final thud it capsized and was swallowed by the river. Those standing on the bank watched in a mix of terror and stunned relief. Terror because the scene was beyond imagination, relief because they had not boarded and had therefore escaped the disaster. Thanks to the man who chartered the boats, if we'd gone on, we'd probably be in the river, a middle-aged tourist said, still trembling. We were too quick to judge him, an aunt nearby added, shaking her head. Whatever his motive, he saved us. We should thank him properly. But why didn't he get on the boat himself? Someone asked. People around them exchanged puzzled looks. Why spend so much to charter boats if you weren't going to ride? Could he have known this would happen and reserved the boats on purpose? Another suggested. Come on, who can predict a storm like that? Others replied, but no one had a convincing answer. Meanwhile, the entire incident had been captured on the live stream. Viewers watched the capsizing unfold in real time, and like the onlookers at the scene, many who had earlier vilified the charterer now flooded the chat with apologies and gratitude. Live comments scrolled like a tide. Oh my God, if he hadn't chartered the boats, those people might be in the river right now. I called him arrogant for flaunting money. I apologize for what I said. I said he was rich but stingy. I take it back. He's a lifesaver. See, don't jump to conclusions. Because he reserved the boats, no one suffered. Some users reflected on their earlier impulsiveness more soberly. One popular comment titled, "The Consequences of Impulsiveness," read, "This taught me a lesson. From now on, I won't criticize someone until I know the whole story. It's far too easy to wrong a good person." That sentiment resonated. On Weibo, the topic "The boss who chartered the boat saves tourists" rocketed into the tens of millions of views and hundreds of thousands of discussions. Screenshots from the livestream circulated with captions expressing thanks, and on Douyin, countless videos revisited the incident, many praising the charterer's indirect role in averting greater tragedy. One in-depth analysis video surpassed 1 million likes, its comments full of gratitude. At the riverbank, Lin Yang's little uncle stood watching the overturned boat, patting his chest as if to steady himself. Relief and appreciation were written on his face. That was way too close. If not for the man who chartered the boats, we might have been in real trouble. His grandmother kept nodding beside him, hands clasped, murmuring prayers and thanks. Her face still showed deep fear, her wrinkles seeming deeper for it. Yes, what a kind soul. May the gods bless him. Lin Yang's parents echoed the same feelings. His father said emotionally, "There are still good people in the world. That man did a great deed." His mother looked on with gratitude and admiration. Lin Yang watched his family and the others as their expressions shifted from anger to thankfulness. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk tugged at the corner of his mouth. After settling things back home, Lin Yang drove the M9 he'd bought for his father, taking both of his parents to Xing City early the next morning. Sunlight streamed through the car windows and warmed the cabin as they sped along the highway. Fields, hills, and scattered villages slid past like pictures in a slideshow. After several hours, they reached Xing City in the late afternoon. Lin Yang's U8 was in the shop, so he was driving the new car on this trip. Because the new plate hadn't yet been registered with the community system, the automatic gate at the Binjiang Bay complex didn't open. Lin Yang pulled up at the entrance, and a security guard immediately hurried over. When the guard recognized him, a wide, familiar smile spread across his face. He opened the gate and politely ushered them in. Lin Yang parked smoothly near the complex entrance, stepped out first, and came around to open the rear doors for his parents. As they climbed out and took in the view of the development, both their faces registered pure shock. Yang Keixia's eyes went wide. She could barely speak. After a moment, she managed, "Xiaoyang, your place. Is it in this complex?" Lin Jiangguo looked equally stunned, scanning the grounds and muttering, "This community looks very upscale. It can't be cheap." Lin Yang felt a quiet swell of pride and smiled. "Mom, Dad, this is my home in Xing City. This is the most expensive complex in the city, 50,000 per square meter. Come on, let me show you. They took the elevator up to his unit. When the door opened, the apartment's clean, warm air flowed out. The living room was spacious and light-filled, tastefully furnished with everything arranged neatly. Floor-to-ceiling windows let streams of sunlight hit the polished floor, making the whole space glow. His parents stepped inside, eyes roaming in wonder. "This house is so big," Yang Chaixia said, stroking the sofa as if to confirm it was real. "The light is wonderful. This is exactly the kind of place you hear about on TV, but I never imagined we'd actually be here." Lin Jiangguo walked to the window and looked out at the river view. "The environment here, the facilities, it's comfortable. Son, you really did well. I never thought I'd live somewhere like this." Just as they were soaking it all in, the doorbell rang. Startled, Lin Yang opened the door to find Chen Qingqing standing there with a bright, friendly smile. "I heard some activity and wanted to check. I didn't expect you'd be back from your hometown so soon." "Qingqing." His mother had heard the voice and came to the doorway. Chen Qingqing's cheeks flushed when she realized Lin Yang's parents were present. She looked a little awkward. "Auntie, uncle, hello. I live right across the way. I just came by because I heard someone was home." Yang Kaixia beamed. "Come in. We brought a lot of specialties from our hometown. Why don't you stay for dinner tonight?" Chen Qingqing politely declined. "Thank you, Auntie, but I already ate. Since you're new to the area, why don't I show you around Qing City tomorrow?" "That sounds lovely," Yang Kaixia said at once. "Call Xiaoyang to come along too." Chen Qingqing glanced at Lin Yang. "I don't know if he's free." Yang Kaixia turned to him. "Xiaoyang, do you have anything important tomorrow?" He thought for a moment. Other than the auction on Saturday night, he had nothing planned. "No, Mom." "Then it's settled. Tomorrow, you two will take your father and me around the city." Yang Chaixia's smile was pleased and conspiratorial. "Okay, Mom," Lin Yang answered. Chen Qingqing chatted with them a little longer before leaving. As she stepped out, she pressed a hand to her chest and let out a small, embarrassed laugh. "How awkward," she murmured to herself. After she left, Yang Kaixia turned to Lin Yang, eyes glittering. "She's a lovely girl, warm and sensible. Living across the hall is a real opportunity. You'd better not waste it." Lin Yang only smiled. Early the next morning, sunlight drifted into the room again, and everyone rose with eager faces. Chen Qingqing arrived in simple, sporty clothes and looked bright and energetic. Lin Yang's parents were dressed neatly. Yang Chaixia in her favorite simple dress, Lin Jiangguo having dug out his old glasses, clearly curious about the city. They all headed to the Guojin Center, the largest and most prestigious shopping mall in Xing City. On the drive, Chen Qingqing chatted animatedly about local customs and must-see spots. Lin Yang concentrated on the road, but joined in now and then, sharing anecdotes about city life. Laughter and conversation filled the car. The Guojin Center's scale astonished Lin Yang's parents. The building soared upward, its striking architecture a symbol of the city's modern prosperity. Luxury cars lined the entrance, and people flowed between doors, an unmistakable pulse of urban life. "These buildings are enormous," Lin Jiangguo said, eyes wide. "Yes, there are people everywhere. You can find anything here," Yang Kaixia replied, visibly delighted. Inside, the mall was bright and elegantly appointed. High-end brand stores glinted behind glass, and tasteful displays showcased designer goods. Soft music floated through the air, creating a refined atmosphere. They began in the home goods section, looking for daily necessities. The selection was wide and the quality high. Each item looked carefully crafted. Lin Yang and Chen Qingqing walked his parents through several stores, explaining features and uses, answering questions patiently. At one tasteful home furnishings shop, they paused to admire the display. The arrangement was simple and elegant. The pieces had an understated artistic flair. A male sales associate noticed Lin Yang's parents enter, and a flicker of disdain crossed his face. He pursed his lips and muttered to the woman beside him, "They clearly can't afford anything here. Having to serve people like that is a pain." He even rolled his eyes. The woman bristled at his tone. "Old people are simple, neat and tidy is fine. Besides, the children usually pay. Look at those two young people. Their clothes and the way they carry themselves say they're not ordinary. Bringing the elders to a home furnishings shop probably means they have a real need. If we serve them well, the commission won't be small. She moved forward with businesslike warmth. Approaching Lin Yang's parents, a genuine smile bloomed on her face, warm and welcoming like a spring breeze. She bowed slightly and said politely, "Uncle, Auntie, welcome to our store. I'm an associate here. Please tell me if there's anything I can help you find." Chapter 154. You don't even look at where they live. We're looking to buy a mattress. Could you recommend one? Chen Qingqing said. Please show us. The shop assistant, Xiao Zhang, brightened immediately, her face lighting up with a warm smile. She moved with brisk, polite efficiency, turned slightly, made a welcoming gesture, and led Lin Yang's family to a display mattress. It occupied the most prominent spot in the store, lit by overhead lamps like a stage spotlight, giving it an air of luxury. Xiao Zhang's eyes shone with pride as she bent slightly, ran her hand along the edge of the mattress, and began her pitch. This is our flagship mattress, she said. Made with the latest international techniques, its comfort is unmatched in Xing City. She pressed the surface gently to show its resilience. See, the unique spring arrangement provides exceptional support and conforms to the body's curves, so it feels as if you're being cradled on a cloud. You'll enjoy deep, restful sleep every night. Then she pointed out the fabric, explaining patiently that it was eco-friendly, breathable, and gentle on the skin, covering every detail as if telling a story of comfort and quality. Finally, she smiled and said, "This mattress is priced at 288,000 yuan. What? Lin Yang's parents, Lin Weiguo and Yang Kaixia, exclaimed in unison, their eyes going wide with shock. Lin Weiguo stood with his mouth slightly open, still trying to register the figure. Yang Kaixia instinctively covered her mouth, disbelief written across her face. That's enough to buy a house in our county, she muttered. They had lived simply in a small county for most of their lives. To them, such a price was astronomical. Nearby, a male colleague was casually straightening shelves when he heard their reaction. He glanced over and, seeing the display, smirked with thinly veiled contempt. He leaned to the man next to him and whispered, "Xiao Zhang is so enthusiastic, wasting her breath. If they can't afford it, they can't afford it." In his eyes, Lin Yang's family were nothing more than country bumpkins who'd wandered into a high-end store. Then, in the next second, Lin Yang's response left him utterly speechless. "I'll take it," Lin Yang said without hesitation. He looked calm and confident, as if 288,000 yuan were pocket change. He lifted his chin slightly and smiled. Yang Kaixia rushed forward and gripped Lin Yang's arm, worry and reluctance on her face. "Lin Yang, there's no need. A regular mattress will do. We'll buy one when the house is finished. This is just wasteful." Lin Yang gently patted his mother's hand, his voice warm and steady. "Mom, if we buy something, we should buy the best. Before, we couldn't afford it. Now we can. You and Dad have worked so hard all your lives. It's time you enjoyed a little comfort." Touched, Yang Kaixia looked around at the luxurious store and then thought of her son's home, 50,000 yuan a square meter, and realized a cheap mattress would feel out of place. She sighed softly, nodded, and let the matter drop, though a trace of heartache lingered in her eyes. Xiao Zhang beamed. She went to the register, brought the payment terminal, and handled it with practiced ease. "Sir, please make the payment here," she said, handing the device to Lin Yang. Lin Yang took out his phone and completed the transfer with a few easy taps. Xiao Zhang checked the screen, confirmed the payment, and quickly offered a slip of paper and a pen. "Please leave your address. We'll deliver within 24 hours and have a professional technician install and adjust it so you can enjoy it right away." Lin Yang wrote the Binjiang Bay address on the form, handed it back, and smiled. "Thank you." Xiao Zhang took the slip carefully and placed it on the counter. "No trouble at all. It's our duty," she said warmly. "Rest assured, we'll deliver on time." After Lin Yang and his parents left, the store fell quiet. The male colleague stood frozen, stunned into silence, his mouth opening and closing as he tried to form a response. He never would have imagined Lin Yang's family would purchase the most expensive mattress without hesitation. Xiao Zhang walked over, laughed, and rapped the colleague lightly on the shoulder. "Are you out of your mind?" she teased. The colleague came back to himself slowly, still staring after them in disbelief. "You were right. He actually bought the most expensive mattress in the store without even blinking," he said, part admiration, part regret. He had missed a commission and hadn't seen it coming. Xiaozhang smiled with quiet triumph. "Of course, he lives in Binjiang Bay. That's the most exclusive community in Xing City." Hearing that, the colleague's eyes widened further. The shock on his face deepened as he realized why Lin Yang had not flinched at the price. "I had no idea he lived somewhere so nice. No wonder he didn't even bat an eye at spending over 100,000. Chapter 155. He can get in. Why can't I? Over the next few days, Lin Yang's parents settled into a pleasant life in Xing City. Accompanied by Chen Qingqing, they wandered the streets and alleys, sampled the city's specialties, and soaked up its bustling, modern energy. Everywhere they went, they were amazed, eyes bright with novelty. They often visited Chen Qingqing's home. The two families gathered, chatted, and filled the rooms with laughter. Time passed quickly. Saturday evening arrived, the night of the auction. As darkness fell, Xing City glittered with lights like a sleepless dream. Lin Yang picked a suit that made him look sharp and distinguished. He took the Lubu Yunle and a 5-kilogram natural bezoar, stepped out confidently, and got into his brand-new M9. The car rolled toward the south gate of Mount Lu. He felt both excited and expectant, his mind full of images of rare items and mysterious treasures waiting at the auction. A faint smile crossed his lips. He hoped the evening would bring surprises. At the south gate, a tall, stern security guard flagged the car to a stop. He approached with precise steps, saluted, and said in a clear, authoritative voice, "Sir, outside vehicles are not allowed into the mountain." Lin Yang calmly took out his phone, swiped to the auction invitation, and held it up. "I'm here for the auction," he said with a smile. The guard examined the invitation. His expression softened. He returned the phone with both hands, saluted again, and said respectfully, "Ah, so you're here for the auction. Please come in." He pressed the remote and the barrier lifted. The M9 eased into the mountain, passing under moonlight that turned the forest silver. When the guard returned to the booth, another guard peered out and asked, "Who was that? You were awfully polite." The first guard lowered his voice, a hint of awe in it. "He had an invitation. I don't know him, but whoever he is must be rich or influential. Best not to offend him." Just then a black Land Rover rumbled up to the gate. Broad and imposing, it stopped, and the driver began honking insistently when the barrier didn't rise. The horn was sharp and impatient, breaking the night's calm. The guard stepped out to check. Inside sat a bald man with a ridiculously thick gold chain that flashed under the lights. His face wore a belligerent sneer. A few yellowed teeth showed. He radiated the air of a nouveau rich. "Sir, outside vehicles aren't allowed into the mountain," the guard said politely. The man leaned out and roared, "Don't waste my time. If outside cars aren't allowed, then how did that car in front of me, clearly not a Mount Lu vehicle, get in?" Seeing the M9's out-of-town plate, his temper flared. The guard tried to stay calm. "That driver had an invitation. If you have one, I'll let you in too." "An invitation? What invitation?" the man snapped, incredulous. The two began arguing. His voice rose, his face reddened, and veins stood out as he gestured wildly, while the guard repeated the rules and stayed firm. The man wouldn't listen. People nearby were drawn by the noise and gathered. Word spread. "That bald guy's right. Someone drove in before him. That Land Rover must have cost over $1 million. He can't be nobody. If he can't get in, who was in that M9? Curiosity turned toward the M9 as it vanished into the moonlit road, and guesses and whispers rippled through the crowd. Lin Yang eased the M9 up the winding mountain road. The car's polished surface caught the sunlight and threw off flashes that made several hikers look back. "How did a private car get up here? I thought Mount Lu banned them," a young man in a baseball cap muttered. A middle-aged man in sportswear snorted, a trace of envy in his voice. "That rule's for ordinary folks. If you can drive to the top, you're not ordinary." A girl with a backpack nodded eagerly. "I heard the management is strict. Only the wealthy or well-connected get permission." "Maybe he's some big boss," the old man guessed, stroking his chin. The group watched the M9 as it climbed away, each imagining what it would be like to have such privileges. Half an hour later, Lin Yang reached the summit. A grand villa sat against the mountain. a sweeping compound in a traditional Chinese style, with upturned eaves, painted beams, and carved pillars. Its green tiles and white walls gave it an air of antiquity and calm. The main gate stood closed, the place radiating a private, almost forbidding dignity. As Lin Yang drove up, the heavy gates parted as if to welcome a guest. He suspected the security at the mountain's base had checked his invitation and alerted the villa. Below, tourists clustered at the entrance, phones raised to capture the view. "Why is there a villa up here?" a bespectacled man asked. "Mount Lu overlooks the whole city. Anyone who can build here can't be ordinary." "Look," a little girl squealed as another M9 rolled up and parked by the gate. The villa drew every eye. Inside Lin Yang's car, the same young man they'd been watching climbed out. Whispers spread. Who was he, to be allowed up the mountain and into the villa? The gates opened wider, revealing a 3-story residence around a deep courtyard with ancient trees and a symmetrical layout that spoke of solemnity and refinement. The tourists lifted their phones, but before they could take pictures, a line of uniformed security rushed out, forming a human barrier and firmly discouraging photography. Only when Lin Yang's car glided through and the gates slammed shut did the crowd lower their phones and resume their speculations. Someone met Lin Yang at the entrance and guided him to park. He stepped out and took in the courtyard, a yard full of priceless cars, Bentley Mulsannes with aristocratic lines, a Ferrari 488 GTB whose styling seemed ready to roar, and a Aventador with an almost theatrical presence. Even the license plates caught his eye, rows of 666, 888, 999. In local belief, those numbers spelled luck, wealth, longevity. Owners of plates like those were not ordinary people. It didn't take long for Lin Yang to realize the attendees were top magnates and celebrities from Xing City and beyond. "Lin Yang, you made it." A familiar voice came from behind. Lin Bayan, owner of the city's largest antique gallery, stood there with a pleased look. Without Lin Bayan's mediation, Lin Yang would never have been invited into this auction. "Mr. Lin, sorry to keep you waiting." Lin Yang returned the smile, then opened the trunk and carefully lifted out the box containing the precious Libuyunlue and the 5-kilogram natural bezoar. Lin Bayan nodded with satisfaction. "Follow me. We'll get these registered." They walked inside, and Lin Yang felt the villa's atmosphere change. Every detail was Chinese in style, solemn and refined. The furniture and decorations looked old but well preserved. Each piece seemed to carry a history. Lin Bayan pointed out with obvious pride, all of this was moved here intact from Jiangsu and Zhejiang. The villa itself is a priceless collection. Everything you see is authentic antique. Lin Yang scanned the room. Any one of those objects, he knew, could fetch tens of millions on the market. There were easily 100 such pieces, more than a private collection, almost a small museum. He wondered who owned this place. They reached a registration room where staff were already at work. Lin Bayan instructed, "Prepare an auction agreement, 15% commission, items, the Libuyunlue, and the 5-kilogram natural bezoar." "Understood, Mr. Lin." The staff moved quickly. A clerk typed the contract, checked the clauses, commission, auction procedures, the rights and obligations, and handed the printed copy to Lin Yang. He read it carefully, signed, then handed over the boxed items. The staff rechecked the details and locked the items in secure storage. Registration was complete. Back in the main hall, the villa's hush deepened with the impending auction. Lin Yang noticed an elevator in a corner he hadn't seen before. Lin Bayan followed his gaze and smiled. "That goes to a special area. You'll see in a minute." They stepped into the elevator. It descended slowly. Lin Yang's curiosity quickened with every floor. Lin Bayan stood beside him with a slightly mysterious smile, enjoying the anticipation. When the elevator chimed and the doors slid open, Lin Yang's eyes widened and he froze, completely taken aback by the sight before him. The elevator came to a steady stop with a ding, and the doors opened to reveal an even stronger, ancient atmosphere that immediately washed over Lin Yang. The scene before him unfolded like a slowly unrolled scroll, leaving him speechless. It was an enormous underground hall, spanning several thousand square meters, encircled by a 2-story Chinese-style building with upturned eaves, carved beams, and painted rafters. Every detail had been painstakingly crafted, radiating old-world elegance. Tall vermilion pillars supported the pavilion roofs like silent storytellers. The railings were carved with elaborate motifs, dragons and phoenixes for good fortune, pines and cranes for longevity, each one so lifelike it seemed a craftsman must still be at work. In the center of the complex rose a grand stage. Its floor was paved with smooth bluestone, the edges inlaid with jade that gleamed warmly under the lights. The backdrop was painted with intricate opera scenes, the figures so vivid they seemed ready to step out and begin a performance. Around the stage, more than a dozen antique round tables were arranged, each occupied by well-dressed guests whose bearing marked them as the wealthy or noble. They listened to the stage performance with teacups in hand, chatting leisurely and laughing from time to time. A faint scent of tea and the strains of opera floated through the air, as if everyone had been transported back to a lavish banquet in a bygone era. Lin Bian smiled and, pointing at the surroundings, explained to Lin Yang, "This auction hall is arranged on 2 levels, each with its own character. The ground floor is the main seating area, open and lively, where many guests can soak up the atmosphere. The second floor is for VIP private rooms, the mark of true status. Only top tycoons with assets in the tens of billions are allowed up there. They get more privacy and exclusive service." Lin Yang followed her gesture and saw a ring of private rooms on the second floor. They were sumptuously decorated, golden Nanmu doors and windows inlaid with glittering gems. Every detail spoke of extraordinary wealth. He counted 8 private rooms in all. 5 were already lit, soft light spilling through carved screens like a quiet announcement of the occupant's prestige. That meant at least 5 ultra-wealthy bidders, people with assets in the tens of billions, were already here. The realization made Lin Yang's fists clench. Suddenly, the 100 million or so he'd transferred from the stock market into his card yesterday felt smaller than a pebble before a mountain. His purpose in coming was to win the ancient book that contained the coded map to the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure, and seeing this field of competitors made the task seem daunting. Was his money enough? A knot of anxiety tightened in his chest. Sensing his unease, Lin Bian patted his shoulder gently. "Don't be too nervous. Just do your best," she said. "There are formidable opponents, true, but don't underestimate your own eyes and judgment. Have some confidence. You might get a surprise." Her words were a warm current that eased some of Lin Yang's tension. She led him to an empty table and in a hurried voice added, "I have something to take care of, so I'll leave you here. The auction rules are on the table. Read them thoroughly before it starts. If you have any questions, ask the staff." "All right, go ahead, I'll look it over," he replied. Lin Yang took a deep breath to steady himself and picked up the card on the table to examine the rules. Each table had an ornate number paddle for bidding. You raised it to place a bid, and the auctioneer would announce the minimum increment before each lot. After finishing the rules, he grabbed the auction catalog and began scanning it, searching for the ancient book mentioned in the intelligence report. Soon he found his own submitted items: Li Bu Yunlue and 5 kilograms of natural bezoar, each with a starting price of 5 million. The catalog was full of dazzling jade artifacts and rare antiques, every one a treasure, none starting lower than 5 million. Of the 30 items listed, only 2 were ancient books: his Li Bu Yunlue and another that matched the intelligence, the book rumored to contain the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure's hidden map codes. Its starting price was also 5 million. Since the starting prices were identical, Lin Yang guessed the final price for that book wouldn't be wildly different from his own item, maybe around 20 million. If that were true, his current funds should be sufficient to bid without undue pressure. He reminded himself, though, that auctions were unpredictable. Prices could skyrocket in a heartbeat. Uncertainty hovered at the edge of his thoughts. Meanwhile, in one of the private rooms on the second floor, Chen Chengqing peered down and tapped her father, Chen Zhengguo. "Dad, look, Lin Yang is here too," she said, eyes bright with surprise and a hint of excitement. Chen Zhengguo followed her gaze and frowned. He shouldn't even qualify for this auction. How did he get in? He murmured, puzzled. "I don't know," Chen Qingqing said, shaking her head. "He never mentioned it to me." Chen Zhengguo considered this for a moment. "It's fine if you don't know. It's good for him to gain experience. This is a top-tier auction. Do you want me to call him up here so we can sit together? Chen Qingqing hesitated, then changed her mind. Better not, she thought. It wasn't the right time to let Lin Yang know she was the daughter of Xing City's richest man. If he learned that now, he might feel pressured, and their relationship could become awkward. It was safer to wait until they were closer and more trusting before revealing her identity. She let the thought go unspoken, and Chen Zhengguo didn't press the issue. He shifted the conversation. Your Uncle Liang is coming to the auction today, too. Go by his room later and say hello. All right, Dad. I will, Chen Qingqing replied obediently, a sweet smile curving her lips. Chapter 158, To Please the Richest Man. Lin Yang sat in his chair, mentally rehearsing the auction rules while scanning the crowd. Although he had never met most of the people around him, many faces looked strikingly familiar. Regulars on provincial TV, prominent local entrepreneurs. There was Wang Hong, the real estate tycoon whose commercial projects dotted the city and redefined its skyline. Zhao Feng, a leader in electronics whose company, thanks to his sharp grasp of tech trends, had carved out a strong domestic and international presence. These billionaires sipped tea and chatted with the casual ease of men for whom money was only a number, as if tonight's auction were nothing more than a social gathering. His eyes drifted to the VIP rooms on the second floor, a ring of ornate private chambers with gilded Nanmu doors and gemstone inlays that shouted prestige. The glass walls kept their interiors hidden. He could only tell if a room was lit. Compared to the main hall, those rooms promised absolute privacy, perfect for whatever deals and favors were being arranged behind closed doors. Lin Yang clenched his fists without thinking. He'd moved more than 100 million yuan out of the stock market into his account just yesterday, but standing among these ultra-rich people, that sum suddenly felt modest. He had come for one reason: to buy the ancient book that contained the code for deciphering the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure map. Winning it would be difficult. Winning it here, against this kind of competition, felt nearly impossible. At 8 o'clock, the auction began precisely on time. The room fell into a hush, and all eyes turned to the stage. The host, an elegant woman in a richly embroidered cheongsam, glided up and introduced the rules in a clear, melodious voice. Welcome, honored guests. Tonight's auction features 30 items, presented in order from the lowest to the highest starting bid. To ensure fairness and give everyone room to compete, each bid must increase by at least 1% of the item's starting bid. For example, an item with a 5 million yuan starting bid requires a minimum increment of 50,000 yuan. An item starting at 10 million requires at least 100,000. Please bid rationally and respect the rules. Her words were concise and carried authority. While people digested the rules, another graceful woman in a cheongsam stepped onto the stage carrying a tray draped in red. Her smile was light, her manner composed, and the tray in her hand seemed to glow with promise. The hall, already hushed, fell into a taut silence. The first item tonight is a dachi tongbao, the auctioneer announced, starting at 5 million yuan. Minimum increment 50,000 yuan. A murmur rippled through the crowd. A starting bid of 5 million signaled a serious item. When the name dachi tongbao spread, the murmur became a low roar of excitement. The dachi tongbao. There are only 2 known examples left. This is priceless. A middle-aged man's eyes shone with greed. An older collector clutched his paddle as if being present here were a prize in itself. A young entrepreneur nearby whispered, "If Mr. Liang collects coins, getting this to him would buy his favor and open so many doors." The name Liang Dingen had the room buzzing. Xiangnan's richest man. For everyone here, currying favor with Liang meant connections and opportunity. Lin Yang listened and felt a chill of astonishment and envy. He had heard rumors that Liang had promised him something for a mere 100 yuan. The contrast between what others were spending to win Liang's attention and what Liang apparently offered him felt absurd. The woman on stage lifted the cloth. The coin glinted under the lights, an aged sheen pitted with the soft scars of time. Upon closer inspection, it was the legendary missing corner daki, one corner intentionally absent, the very variety collectors prized most. It sat quietly on the tray, and the room leaned toward it as if drawn by an invisible magnet. Some looked covetously, some admiringly, but all were engrossed. When the auctioneer opened the floor, the hall erupted. 5.5 million, a man in a sharp suit called, paddle raised. 6 million, came another voice, booming from a burly entrepreneur 2 rows back. Bids climbed fast. Within minutes, the price had broken 10 million. Gasps followed each new number. What started as cautious increments soon became aggressive jumps. The minimum rule was ignored in spirit, if not in letter. People bid 500,000 at a time or more. For these bidders, money had ceased to be a limiting factor. To many, the coin was not just a collectible but currency in the social economy, a means to flatter Liang Dingen, to secure introductions, to expand empires. The main floor's fervor contrasted with the composed calm of the men in the VIP boxes above, some of whom had assets reaching into the tens of billions. That divide made the scene all the more tense and theatrical. Lin Yang watched the shouting, the raised paddles, the flicker of arrogant certainty on the faces of those used to winning. He felt a knot of anxiety. The coin's price was already soaring, and the people bidding were the kind who would stop at nothing for advantage. His focus tightened on his own mission, the ancient book, the key to the treasure map. No matter what it cost, he had to get it. But as the numbers climbed and the room's frenzy intensified, he couldn't help but wonder if the money in his account would be enough. Chapter 159. Auctions were cold. After a fierce bidding war, the Dachi Tongbao finally sold for 96 million. The ancient copper coin went to Joe Fakin, a prominent entrepreneur from Xing City and the chairman of Nancy Technology, whose net worth approaches 10 billion. He rose, cupped his hands, and bowed broadly to the hall, smiling as he acknowledged the room. His face glowed with undisguised excitement. For entrepreneurs in Xiangnan, a man of his wealth carried real influence, and Joe clearly judged the prestige and connections the coin would bring to be worth the price. Those who had been outbid cast envious glances his way. No sooner had the excitement over the first lot begun to fade than a cheongsam-clad beauty glided back onto the stage carrying a tray draped in red. Her every step was precise and poised, drawing the audience's attention like a catwalk. The host smiled and, in a clear voice that filled the hall, introduced the next item. Up next is today's second lot, a Ming-Qing porcelain piece. It has a clear provenance, formerly part of a well-known noble family's collection, and has been well preserved. The craftsmanship is exquisite, the form distinctive. Its glaze is warm and smooth like jade, and the painted motifs are exceptionally fine. The starting bid is 5 million, with minimum increments of 50,000. The red cloth was peeled back to reveal an elegant porcelain piece. Its silhouette was graceful, its lines smooth and natural, and under the lights the glaze shone with a subtle luster. The painted designs seemed to tell stories of long ago. Bidders craned their necks to examine it, some with appreciation, others with a determined look of competitors. A bespectacled, refined-looking middle-aged man was first to raise his paddle. 5.5 million, he said in the quiet room. A glamorous woman in the front row answered almost immediately, cool and confident. 6 million. The price climbed steadily. Unlike the wild jumps seen during the coin's sale, the increments here were modest but deliberate, each one met with focused silence. An elderly man in a tang suit raised his paddle unhurriedly. 8 million, he said with a faint smile and a calm, composed air. The middle-aged bidder wiped a bead of sweat from his brow and countered, 8.5 million. The woman pushed back again, her voice steady. 9 million. Bidding continued with quiet tension until the porcelain sold for 12 million. The auctioneer's gavel fell and warm applause filled the hall. The winning bidder, the woman in the front row, allowed herself a relieved smile, stood and nodded graciously to those around her, pride written on her face. Lin Yang sat in the audience, unmoved by the porcelain. His mind wasn't on the current lots, but on the two items he had consigned, the Libu Yunlue and a natural bezoar. During a short break, he flipped through the catalog and confirmed their positions. The bezoar was Lot 5, and the Libu Yunlue was Lot 6. In the VIP room upstairs, Chen Qingqing stood at the special glass and watched Lin Yang below. Her eyes were curious and unsettled. She wondered why he was here, whether he was interested in the auctions, and why, after watching so long, he still hadn't bid. She studied his every movement, searching for any clue. The auction resumed with the fifth lot. The auctioneer's voice rang out, commanding and clear. Lot 5 is a natural bezoar, weighing 5 kilograms. Natural bezoar, a precious traditional Chinese medicinal material, is a gallstone formed in the gallbladder, bile ducts, or hepatic ducts of bovines, such as cattle or buffalo. Its occurrence is extremely rare. Under normal conditions, the chance of a cow developing gallstones is only 1 to 2 per thousand. From a million head of cattle or buffalo, you might only get 3 to 4 kilograms of bezoar. That rarity makes natural bezoar exceptionally valuable. He paused to let the rarity sink in, then continued. The bezoar on display today is remarkable not only for its weight, 5 kilograms, but also for its quality. It has a golden hue, fine texture, a smooth surface, and the unmistakable luster characteristic of natural bezoar. It holds great medicinal value and increasingly significant collector value as interest in traditional medicine and rare items grows. The starting bid is 5 million, with minimum increments of 50,000. Bids erupted almost instantly. 5.5 million, 6 million, 5 million. The numbers climbed in quick succession, punctuated by murmurs and exclamations from the audience. 8 million, 8.5 million, 9 million. Eyes fixed on the bezoar, the room felt like a sealed arena where the piece was about to be divvied up. Once the price passed 10 million, bids came more cautiously but persistently. 11 million, 12 million. Each increment required deliberation, yet the determination in bidders' eyes never wavered. 13 million, 14 million, 14.5 million, 15 million. The hall fell into a hush as the auctioneer swept his gaze across the crowd and announced loudly, 15 million once, 15 million twice, 15 million 3 times. The gavel fell. The natural bezoar sold for 15 million. Warm applause followed, and the winning bidder, a woman, exhaled in relief and allowed a smile to spread across her face. Lin Yang sat quietly and did the math. He had estimated that 5 kilograms of bezoar would fetch about 9 million on the market, so he hadn't expected 15 million at auction. After the auction house's 15% commission, 2.25 million, his net was 12.75 million, about 3.75 million more than he would have gotten selling it himself. It was convenient and risk-free. He owed this opportunity to Lin Bian's introduction. He made a mental note to thank him properly later. No sooner had the applause died down than the auctioneer introduced the 6th lot. Lot 6 is an ancient book from the Northern Song dynasty, the Libu Yunlue. When the red cloth was lifted, an old, weathered book appeared. Its cover had yellowed with age, and the pages showed wear, but the volume radiated a palpable historical charm. The calligraphy was neat and elegant, remarkably legible despite the years. Exclamations broke out among the spectators. An original from the Northern Song. That's priceless, an elderly man breathed, reverent. Rare to see such a copy on the market, a middle-aged man agreed, eyes bright with excitement. I heard this rhyme book is important for studying Song Dynasty exams and culture. Owning one would be meaningful, a young man in glasses added. But when the auctioneer announced the starting bid, 5 million, with minimum increments of 50,000, the scene took an unexpected turn. Everyone had assumed this lot would spark fierce competition, yet the bidding stalled. Only 3 or 4 people raised paddles. The hall's air grew noticeably cooler, and the atmosphere around the Libu Yunlue felt oddly subdued. Lin Yang sat beneath the stage, brow slightly furrowed as he scanned the bidders. He spotted a familiar face, researcher Xiao from the Xiangxi City Museum. Researcher Xiao had visited his home not long ago, offering 5 million to buy the Libu Yunlue. The other 3 bidders were strangers. From their dress and bearing, they looked more like scholars than flashy businessmen, probably museum representatives too. When the auction resumed, researcher Xiao raised his paddle without hesitation and offered 10 million. He smiled with quiet confidence, eyes set on winning. Lin Yang smiled inwardly at the irony. Researcher Xiao had balked at 5 million at his house, yet here he doubled that immediately. The Libu Yunlue ultimately hammered for 29 million, 9 million above Lin Bian's estimate. After the 15% commission, the net was 24.65 million. Lin Yang did the math in his head. With the proceeds from the Libu Yunlue and the natural bezoar he'd sold, he would net roughly 37.4 million. Add the 120 million recently transferred to his account from selling military stocks, and he had about 150 million at his disposal. The old book that hinted at the typing Heavenly Kingdom treasure map was scheduled ninth on the lot with a 5 million starting price. If nothing unexpected happened, its final price should be in the same neighborhood as the Libuyunlue, well within his means. The Taiping treasure represented unimaginable wealth. He could not allow this book to fall into someone else's hands. One by one, the items went up. When the cheongsam-clad assistant brought out the old book on a red-covered tray and unveiled it, the auctioneer began his spiel. Next, an ancient manual, a Taoist health preservation and guiding technique. With sustained practice, it strengthens the body and is said to prolong life. Starting price 5 million, minimum raise 50,000. The moment the auctioneer mentioned prolong life, the hall stirred. If it really prolongs life, this is priceless. A middle-aged man in a tailored suit, an ostentatious watch flashing at his wrist, leaned forward. His voice trembled with eagerness. I've made a fortune, but my health's been falling apart. My last checkup showed so many problems. Money can buy anything but health. If this can add years to my life, it's worth any price. He clenched his paddle as if that made it his. An elderly gentleman in the front row, white-haired but alert, pushed up his reading glasses and spoke quietly, his voice carrying across the room. Taoist guiding techniques have a long, profound tradition. They combine breathing and movement to regulate the flow of qi and blood, clear meridians, and strengthen organ function. From a traditional Chinese medicine perspective, health depends on smooth qi and blood circulation. Guiding techniques help maintain that balance and thus preserve the body. His measured explanation added authority. The crowd nodded, interest deepening. The idea of a life-prolonging manual made the book far more desirable. Then a young man in casual clothes interjected from a corner. Is it really that miraculous? That sounds like hype. Taoist exercises might be beneficial, but claiming they prolong life? That's a stretch. The auctioneer is probably boosting the description to raise bids. His skepticism cut through the mood. Some in the room agreed, better not to accept extravagant claims at face value, while others scowled, annoyed at what they saw as dampening enthusiasm. Voices rose and fell as debate flared. Lin Yang watched the exchange, the confident expression he'd worn earlier draining away. He had expected his 150 million to be more than enough, but the crowd's fervor for a life-prolonging manual had complicated matters. If bidders truly believed the claim, the price could skyrocket. He braced himself and scanned the room for serious contenders. Then, from the VIP boxes on the second floor, a voice called 50 million. At that, Lin Yang felt his heart drop. The VIP rooms were reserved for the ultra-wealthy, people with tens of billions to their names. If someone from up there wanted the manual, no amount of Lin Yang's current assets could match them. He swallowed. He understood why elite buyers prized anything promising longevity. They had the means to make such purchases without blinking. But this book contained a hidden compartment. Inside were items that could reveal the code of the Taiping Heavenly Kingdom treasure map. He could not, would not, let it slip away.